Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 372. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Matt.
Shazam.
This is your DC comic podcast. We get together, we talk about the books we read this week. We're recording this one a day earlier than normal. It's Friday, for whatever reason, which shouldn't matter, other than just if big DC news breaks on Saturday morning that you thought we would have talked about. This is why, because it's not happened yet, so it'll be next week.
Quiet day.
Well, it was a quiet week because there's no news to talk about as of right now, which is why I guess I'm worried that there could be news
True.
by normal recording time tomorrow, but that's okay. So yeah, what we got coming up this week? We have Batman 137, we have Birds of Prey issue 1, Shazam issue 3, Justice Society of America issue 6, Matt read Poison Ivy 14, we got Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville issue 1, City Boy issue 4, and I've got a Patreon book. I'll be looking at Batman and the Outsiders issue 6. So that is what's coming up on the show this week. And it's very humid. It's gotten a little bit better, but earlier on I was streaming for a little bit and I was like wiping my brow like constantly. Just sweat pouring off me like the end of the airplane. Oh. Yeah. But yes, we'll get into things. The one good thing, Matt, is that when we record on like a different day than normal, right? Friday, on a very rare occasion, maybe a Thursday, or if we're even a bit late and we have to do it on the Sunday. The good news is that Comixology top 10 is always going to be there for us.
You said good news, not depressing news.
It's not even really news. It's just the
realizations.
It's the beautiful natural state of the world. Is what it is. So yeah, we'll look at the Comixology top 10. As always, they're split by Tuesday and Wednesday. So we'll look at Tuesday first for DC, and then we'll look at Wednesday for the rest. But these are just the ranking of the sales based on right now at the time of recording on Comixology. So what do you think number one book was on Tuesday, Matt?
I'm gonna be hopeful, and I'm gonna think that it was Birds of Prey number 1.
It was not.
Drats. Batman.
It was Batman. Batman was number 1. However, don't fret too much because Birds of Prey was number 2. Number 3 was Justice Society of America. Number 4 was Shazam. So, all of our more hype books all coming in, 2, 3, and 4. Number 5, and this is a little surprising, is Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville.
Okay.
Number 6 is Blue Beetle issue 1. Number 7 is The Joker, The Man Who Stopped Laughing. Number 8 is Steelworks. Number 9 is Peacemaker Tries Hard. And number 10 is Poison Ivy. So,
people, start reading Poison Ivy, please. It's a delightful book. And I don't like that Peacemaker is outselling it. I understand Joker and even Blue Beetle. Maybe there was some hype from the movie, and it was number 1. But Steelworks, like, nothing against that book, but come on.
I'll be curious to see if Blue Beetle can be in a similar position next month, or if it's just going to tank to what I expect it to do next month. I don't know. We'll see.
As a follow-up to that mini-series at Graduation Day, maybe there was hype from that, because I don't know if that trade's even out yet. But yeah, maybe there's some hype from those people too. Add a little bit of movie buzz and that. But like, yeah, come on. Let's get Poison Ivy closer to the top 5.
Yeah, I chose not to read Blue Beetle because it was basically a follow-up to that other book that I didn't read. You were going to read it, but ran out of time.
Yeah, because Friday.
Because Friday, it's a day earlier than normal. Although the other book you conveniently didn't have time for was Batman, you sneaky bugger.
To be fair, and I told you this before, I did go back and read the Batman Catwoman special from last week because I had every intention to read Batman, and I got about a quarter of the way through Batman before I ran out of time. So,
well, I'll fill you all the juicy details in, Matt. Don't you worry. I'll fill you up real good.
I don't do that. Don't say that. Phrasing.
What phrasing? Friends fill each other up, man. That's how it works.
Okay. I was gonna say, knowing that the "My Parents Are Rich" line was coming made it very much funnier. And I don't know who wrote that line. I don't know if that's Teenie Howard or if it's
Based on this issue of Batman,
Zdarsky?
I think Zdarsky's the culprit, but
Gotcha.
we'll find out.
But the unintentional comedy scale got ramped really up when you're waiting for it. But yes. So, did really go back and read that. And yes, also the Montoya art was noticeably rougher when you're looking for it. So, you know.
Yeah. So, are you planning on reading this finishing this Batman?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I bought it to read. I got a quarter of the way through. I'll probably read it tomorrow when I have some downtime.
Okay. Just so you can be caught up when that next hotly anticipated issue of Catwoman comes out.
It's one of these things where I'm trying not to read things I don't want to read, right? I know it sounds common sense.
Yeah.
However, after surviving Night Terrors, right, it does sometimes reading some of this less than good makes for good content, and I hate that word. I hate that everything's content now, right? But it makes for at least a good discussion between me and you. Right, we got Gunbat Night Terrors. Yeah. We got My Parents Were Rich. Like,
I think, and I know Connor doesn't agree with this, but I think because we do a podcast, I think regardless of how little interest we might have in it, I think whatever the main thing going on at DC, we should probably be talking about. Even we could skip anything else we don't want to read, but I feel like this Batman Catwoman crossover for the next month or two is the main thing going on. We should probably be talking about it. So,
I agree. And if this was like Red Hood Catwoman crossover, right? we would not even be daring. But the fact that it is so high profile, you know,
at least it's not got 50 tie-ins like Night Terrors.
Yeah, it's real small. I mean, there's that Red Hood book. Speaking of,
but I'm not reading that.
But isn't it chapters in this? Like it was Batman, Catwoman, that Red Hood special.
I thought it was more of like a tie. If it says at the end of Catwoman. Chapter 4 is in that Red Hood one shot. I'll read the Red Hood one shot. But
that's how I was taking it. But
I thought it was a separate, like, skippable, tie-in thing.
That said, reading stuff like that also makes the other things like Poison Ivy stand out as I'm very much enjoying the books that I'm choosing. But yeah, or Birds of Prey even. But it makes those books stand out more. Just by a little bit. So.
All right. Well, Wednesday's Comixology still to be done here. You got a guess for number one?
I'm pulling it up right now. I'm looking for anything that rings of an event. Oh, there's 2 X books in the top. So now it's a 50-50.
I don't know. There's a Magneto book that could be that.
Oh, is it? See, it's not on Leo Comic Geeks. It's not. But you wouldn't tell me about that if that was number 1 because you want me to look like a fool. I'm gonna guess X-Men 26.
That's correct. Number 2 is Immortal X-Men issue 15. Which
was the other one.
Yes, I presumed that was the second choice.
That cover is rough. It looks like Wolverine's melting.
It does, doesn't it? Number 3 is Amazing Spider-Man. Number 4 is Ghost Rider Wolverine. Number 5 is Fantastic Four. Number 6 is Scarlet Witch. Number 7 is Doctor Strange. Number 8 is The Sacrificers issue 2. That's an image book by Rick Remender. Number 9 is Moon Knight. And then number 10 is Star Wars Dark Droids. We got one non-Marvel book in the top 10. Yeah. That's something.
Which is a Remender, which is nice. I haven't heard that name in quite a long time.
I'll be honest, I never really get into any of his work, but, I at least respect other people who are fans of it. So, very, very good. I'm just skimming to see if anything else sticks out that I want to say, hey, this is a thing. Not really. There's a Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer comic of some kind. I don't know what the quality's been like on those recently. I don't know if they're worth checking out or what. There's a book called Godzilla, Here Be Dragons.
You have my curiosity.
Yeah, I figured I might. But hey, I don't know. Why? No, I don't want to buy the comic. So I just want to click on it and get more information. Why is that so...
Yeah, I see the Here Be Dragons. There's also Hunt for Skinwalker, which I wonder what that is. That sounds up my alley.
Oh, jeez. Anyway, yeah. Aye. There you go. That was number 3 of the Godzilla book for the record. Oh, I'm
Yes.
noticing. So IDW and I think Image still do this as well. Is that after 2 months they half the price of all their comics digitally? I forgot they did that. It's been a while since I've
That's nice.
browsed their back catalog. That is nice. But anyway, there you go. That's the Comixology top 10. And as said earlier, there wasn't really any news this week. It's been quiet in comic book land and even movie land because of all the the strikes
Things.
and whatnot going on. So I guess we'll just get into Batman 137.
Yeah.
We'll just...
Take the lead there. I was looking maybe any news popped up, but so far nothing. So,
Yeah. So hold on. I need to do some. Oh, I need to do some things. I need to make sure. I'm trying not to cover your face as I move something on my desktop. There we go. I've done it. I have succeeded in my stealth organization. Anyway, so yes, Batman 137 by Chip Zdarsky and Jorge Jimenez. So I mean, obviously they are. I expected would be good. It's Jorge Jimenez. Why wouldn't it be? So I often won't read any of my books until like the Friday or the Saturday, just before we record. And for whatever reason this week, I think it's because we were doing this early and I had other things to do today. I was making sure I was reading some of the books, sprinkled throughout over a few days. So I read this back on like Wednesday. So if it takes me a second to click what was going on. But basically Batman starts clamping down on all Selina's like cronies, right? So the book starts with like a couple of people that she's trained breaking into a place, and Batman's there and is beating the shit out of them and whatnot. And it becomes this running thing. And Batman's being extra aggressive with criminals. Tim calls him out on it. So on and so on. I think my big problem with this is that ultimately this issue is built into a conflict. It's built into a conflict with obviously Selina, but it's built into a conflict with Bruce and the rest of the Bat family, who all think that he's pushing himself and he's being extra aggressive to make a point that he's not happy about any of this. I think my big thing with this is not so much that I don't buy the conflict would get there eventually. It's that it happens so quickly. Like, we straight up get in this issue Batman fighting the Bat family. Like, that happens before the end of this issue.
Oh boy, already, huh?
Yeah, and that felt a bit weird to me. They do like a little bit of a thing where they're distracting Batman to get to the people that were arrested already. But unbeknownst to them, this is the exact same time Batman is attacking Selina's base. So Batman actually breaks into her base and beats up most of the people she's been training. and then Jason...
You know what? If I didn't know any better, I would think that Batman's the villain.
Do you know what? One of my key things that I was going to say is that I am finding it very, very hard to in any way sympathize with his side of this. It feels like he's the one in the wrong. Now, don't get me wrong. At the end of the issue, much like the end of last issue, there's a little implication that Zur-En-Ar's having more of an influence on him than maybe he wants to admit. He's seeing that he's put him behind a jail cell in his mind, but he does kind of sound like he's just angry Zur-En-Ar Batman at times. Like, so I think maybe they're doing something there. But even still, like, the rest of the team showing up and trying to stop Batman, and it just devolving into a fight immediately. And what's worse is that, Batman just kind of wins against them all quite easily. It just kind of...
We just had this in the Mark Waid Lazarus Planet book.
Yep, exactly. Until Damien's oddly absent until he shows up and punches Red Hood, and he's on his dad's side, of course, because he's Damien.
Of course, but of course he singles out Jason. It is like F you in particular.
Yeah, but Selina breaks out her people out of the police van, but then hears what's happened. Our base of operations has been completely torn apart, and a lot of our people have been beat. And Batman is with Damien, and Damien notes that because he's basically just realized about Batman's hand, how it's like a cybernetic hand now, and Bruce kind of admits that it's kind of helping the whole thing where he's getting old and feeling like he can't do it anymore. Like, his hand's stronger than it used to be, and it feels like, are we seeding that he's going to start giving himself more like augmentations to like make his body stronger, because it kind of feels like he's like going, you know what, this is giving me an edge that I was starting to think I didn't have anymore.
I mean, the whole point, I bring Mark Waid's name up again because the whole point in Kingdom Come of the exoskeleton Batman is that he pushed his body so far that he had to have an exoskeleton frame in order just to walk around. You know? Like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, I'm scouring the book because there was another. It wasn't quite as funny as My Parents Were Rich, but there was a moment where Batman yelled something at someone, and it kind of.
It definitely sounds like he's devolving into 10-year-old Bruce.
Oh yeah,
right?
that was it. So when he's attacking the like Selina's base, right, wherever she is with all of her people, and Jason's trying to stop him. And Jason's sort of like debating with him, and Batman says, if you believe Selina's plan, if you think death is fine if it stops more death, and then he yells, then shouldn't I kill you? Which just like, this is one of these things where the voice for him just feels off. And if he's doing a thing where it's Zuranar that's starting to creep in, okay, I can kind of at least like that justifies it to a point, but the rest of the team like are already feeling like, oh, we have to step in and stop him. Like he's doing something wrong here, and I just think it escalates far too fast.
It's also very draconian thinking on Bruce's part that all crime is equal, right? Because it's not.
No, it's not even close to all being equal.
Right, and so like yes, his parents died, and that's what gave birth to Batman, right?
And that was murder. But if someone had just mugged them and left them alone,
right,
not the same thing.
Because when he says my parents were rich, I feel like if they had got back to Wayne Manor and Martha's pearls were gone, she would just be like, oh, okay, well, let's figure out how to put better locks on these windows, right? And they would just go buy new ones.
No, we'd be reading comics about Martha having nightmares about her pearls falling from her neck for years if she lived.
But no, but like, you know what I mean? Like, so just this very oversimplification to Bruce that all crime is equal when you literally have your arch nemesis Joker upping the ways he kills people, right? Not really doing property crimes.
Joe, the sad part is that, again, I said this a lot last time, but conceptually, if you told me you're going to do a story where Bruce is starting to go too far and the rest of the family unite and rebel against him, I think that sounds like a great idea. But it's went from 2 to 11 in the span of like 10 pages in this issue. It does not earn it. It does not build up to it. I just did not feel it. All of it just rang false to me. So there's two other big things that's going on here that needs to be mentioned. One is that whilst all this stuff's happening, a lot of the other villains are up to something. There's just a couple pages where it's do we even know who this is that's showing up here?
I did see Mad Hatter and Professor Pig. I got to that part.
It's Mad Hatter, I think. It's Mad Hatter coming and Professor Pig brings him in, and it's a table with Scarecrow, Black Mask, Two-Face, Calendar Man, Scarface, and I think Firefly was the last one? Or Killer Moth.
One of them.
Yeah, I get them mixed up, but basically...
They're really pushing Calendar Man.
Yeah, they are. But they're really, they're building up to something whilst, like, Catwoman... And this is probably going to be lend to the idea that Batman is at least partially right, is that all this has done is be a big distraction so the real bad guys could plan and plot and do something really bad. So, that'll be a fair point when it pops up, but... and then the other thing is that, so after he's had his fight with his Bat family and he's in his brownstone apartment, some lawyer dude shows up to tell Bruce that because of his financials, he's actually he's lost the manor. The manor has been sold to someone. So the last chunk of the issue...
Please say Selina.
Well, he thinks that. He actually considers that it might have been Selina.
Okay.
But he's like thinking, oh, who is this? But he's basically racing back to the cave because he's like, I need to like sort of shut off the access so no one can find the Bat cave. It'll completely blow the whole thing, right? Whoever this new owner is. So he's racing back to the Bat cave. He gets in. This is where Zuranar's kind of like over his shoulder being like, oh, they'd expose you. You need the cave. We need the cave. Stop this. He's sort of the devil in his shoulder. But the ending is we find out who's bought the cave. Batman sort of slouches down and he just tears off to the side. Pardon me, I don't mean to be rude, but you're in my home. And the final page reveals that the person who's bought the cave and now knows who Batman is out of nowhere Vandal Savage.
What? Stop.
The last page is Vandal Savage.
Oh, okay. I mean, look, I love Vandal Savage as a character. But yeah, you were really not kidding when you said out of nowhere.
Is it so out of nowhere? When I got to this page, I was like, wait, what? Why? where have you been? Like
the immortal, yeah. Last time I saw him, he was doing stuff with in Snyder's run, right? Like those posts with the fragment of reality.
Yeah, you mean in Justice League?
Yeah, in Justice League. Yeah. So
I don't know if he's been done much since then, but so this is a weird pivot, and it does make me think, like, how does this fit into the rest of the Gotham War that's happening? Because it feels like separate to that, but I mean, I don't know. It says to be continued in Catwoman 57, which is out in a couple weeks. So, obviously the art is generally very good. It's Jorge Jimenez. He knows what he's doing. There's not really much to fault there. Conceptually, I don't even mind the ideas that they're playing with. I just think it's speed running through and not actually giving any. It's not giving it time to really believe that the seeds of, like, not even mistrust. That's not the right word, but just the seeds of the family thinking, "Oh, we need to intervene." Like there's Batman's going too far. We have to intervene. They just don't earn them making that choice. And I don't really enjoy Batman's side of this because it feels like he's just ignoring every valid point any of them make. And while I'm not saying that's completely out of character necessarily, just the way it's handled and the way it's scripted just rings a bit false. It's playing in a way where Batman's feeling out of character the entire time. And maybe that's partially the point, but I think you could get across that he's out of character as opposed to me thinking maybe the writer just isn't really good at writing Batman. which is the precipice I'm kind of on right now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because even during the failsafe stuff, he felt like Batman, and even in the Red Mask stuff, which we didn't necessarily like and got kind of zany, it still felt like the voice of Bruce is right. This just feels like it's not. Like it's a different character.
I mean, there was the odd little moment where he was a bit off. It just wasn't ever like a huge deal during the failsafe arc, but there was definitely those little moments where it felt like the voice was just a little bit different.
Yeah.
But it's gotten worse as time has went on in the run for sure. Bizarrely, it's probably because Zdarsky's feeling more confident, but in a weird way, he's leaning into things I don't like. So it's not something I'm super on board with. I guess the key thing in this, other than the big reveal about who bought the manor, is that Selina is pissed. Like Batman has fired a shot across the bow, and Selina is probably going to want to retaliate next issue. So I'm interested in seeing what she does with that.
Yeah.
But it's a murky story so far for me. I'm not in love with it by any means.
It's wild.
If that was obvious. Yes. Suddenly, Vandal Savage.
Yeah, that's the one now. I'm excited to see how this all fits in now. Because do you think that's going to continue in Catwoman, or do you think?
I don't think so. I feel like Vandal Savage stuff won't come back until Batman's next issue. Would be my guess. But I don't know.
That makes sense.
We'll see. As far as ratings go. I think I might give it a 6 because the art's quite good and it's not like I hate every idea that's in there, but the execution is leaving me kind of cold in a lot of ways. So 6 out of 10 for me for Batman 137. So that'll take us on to Birds of Prey issue 1, Kelly Thompson writing with Leonardo Romero on the art. So I have been looking forward to Kelly Thompson jumping ship to DC for quite some time. I made that clear when the solicits for this came out. I was jazzed about the whole thing for this new Birds of Prey book. And this issue is very much the first issue. It's the assembling the team. There's a bit of a mystery set up right from the get-go with Dinah talking to Ollie. Ollie can't be involved, really, but she has to put together a team. And the plan is, as Ollie puts it, to put together a team that'll make whoever runs into them in a dark alley shit their pants. That's the goal that's set up at the start. And it teases that, you know, the purpose of this is for Dinah's like adopted sister, but we get more of that as the book goes on. I mean, before we get into like what happens in it, Emma, how did you feel about this?
I liked it a lot. It doesn't feel like a Birds of Prey book. It feels like its own thing. But I understand why they went with that title, and maybe it'll develop into feeling like that Birds of Prey. But it has a voice. I already, you know, has that Kelly Thompson feel to it. So I'm not upset at all of that. Just, I don't know, calling it Birds while only having, you know, Dinah. However, they do make it a big point of Barbara can't know about this.
Yeah,
right?
like whoever gave Dinah the information she has, which we'll get to at the end of the issue, obviously, said specifically, in no uncertain terms, that Barbara cannot know about any of this. So obviously she would have brought Barbara in, but she's not allowed to.
Right. So I think that's part of the point too. So, but it definitely has the lightness that I associate with Kelly Thompson, like especially from Hawkeye and West Coast Avengers and all that type of stuff.
It's got the... She writes very likable characters, and the way they bounce off of each other without it being overly wordy is a skill. And, you know, the art here is fantastic. I think Romero does a really great sort of flat, muted colors style of you know, when you get to like just like three pages in, where it's like, oh, well, if you can't have Babs, who's the next best choice? And then you cut to, you know, Cassandra Cain, like fighting a bunch of, you know, League of Assassins, whoever it is. And it's just, you know, it feels like a big entrance, and you get that gorgeous 2-page spread where Dinah jumps in and helps her fight. And it's like, you know, it's all the different positions they're in as they're going through all these like fights that they're having. And
fighting League of Shadows, League of Assassins, one of them. Right. And also the body language for cast too. That's always important. Is when I look at an artist's work when they're working with cast, is because she's mostly nonverbal, and over time she's gotten more verbal, but the body language has to be there. And I feel like Romero does that very well here, because a lot of the panels with cast, she's in the full mask, like her Batgirl costume.
In fact, I think she's in that in every panel. She's in
every panel, and so, but you still get the vibe she's going for. She's still very, you know.
Well, the best example of that, after this 2-page spread, that's, you know, all the fights happening, is at the bottom of that page when Dinah says, "Hey, I've got this mission. I need you to sign up. You can't tell Barbara, but this is about my sister. I need to save her." Blah blah blah. And there's 2 panels at the bottom of that page where Cass says okay, and then there's a panel of Dinah saying really just like that, and then Cass responds, "Of course, what's more important than a sister?" And those 2 panels are almost identical, the Cass ones, because it's just her in her mask. But if you look closely, you can see that the shoulders have very different body language in both. One of them, they're more sort of, you know, up and like she's sort of tense. And then when she says the thing about, you know, there's nothing more important than a sister, her shoulders are relaxed. And the body language, just and that subtle detail, just tells you something on its own. So, yeah.
I do love that Cass is getting a revival, because, you know, we had her in Batgirls, right? And then she's one of the main characters in Spirit World, and now she's part of the Birds of Prey team. So, like, you know, just letting these creatives come on and use the character, and they all feel in their interpretations pretty good.
I think anyone reading Batgirl from, you know, the early to mid 2000s probably has a lot of affection for Cassandra Cain, and wants to. And, you know, a lot of people who are writing comics now were probably reading in that era, so it makes a lot of sense. They all want to use her.
But yeah, so Kelly Thompson, and, you know, big fan from the Kate Bishop Hawkeye series and all of that stuff. So bringing, like you were talking about, the incorporation of all these characters, but they all have unique voices. So you know exactly who's talking, even if you're not looking directly where the balloon's going, which I think that is one of Thompson's specialties.
Yeah, I mean, the very next person then introduces Big Barda, who, again, speaks very different. I guess the best thing to compare her to, she's like the Drax of the group.
Kind of, yeah.
You know, she's very matter-of-fact. She refers to Cass as Little Bat over and over again.
Would you guess that Barda was my favorite part of this book this week?
Oh, I'm shocked, man. That's not like you.
So
that's only because there's not a redhead.
That's true. You throw Knockout in here, or from Apocalypse, where we got a different.
Yeah. Because Barda hits Cass by accident when she first shows up, and then is like, "Oh, sorry, but I'm impressed you survived the hit, little bat." So,
and I saw that you were getting ready to dodge, so you're good on top of it.
Yeah.
So it's those little things how she's talking through her physicality.
I think what's so interesting about how these different action scenes, because there's again they fight like a bunch of these lackeys that Barda was fighting in her bar. And the first fight with Dinah in the League of Assassins is presented as this big 2-page spread where you're seeing all the different positions that they're in as they're going through and fighting all these different bad guys. It's because it's one big 2-page spread, and it's like it's giving you this idea of like smooth, almost acrobatic combat. It's giving you this sense of like flowing through the scene. The Barda scene where she's with Cass, because Barda's the focus, it's a lot more panels, and it's a lot more of like Barda like throwing people out of panels. It's a lot more carnage. It's a lot more like, no, this isn't acrobatic when it's Barda that's fighting. This is someone Hulk smashing and throwing people around like the rag dolls. And does a really good job of getting that across, the difference between the two fighting styles, I thought. So, that's very good.
Very much.
Yeah. So recruits Barda. Once she knows it's about Sin, the sister, she's in. Whilst Dinah is off to Star City to recruit kind of our sort of least known character of the announced team, which is of course Zealot from the Wildcats side of the tracks. Who
makes an appearance with Grifter, which that keeps that I associate those characters together since Rosenberg introduced them in Urban Legends, right? So
I mean, to be fair, I think they've been connected a lot longer than that, but yeah.
Well, what I mean is in this form, right? In this version of Wildcats, they're kind of partnered up in that way. So the fact that she goes there and she's with Grifter, and that plays off of Dinah and Grifter's past too, because that's a Team 7 thing.
Yeah, well, Zealot says that this is not. She's not convinced to go and help. She owes Dinah a favor, and it's like, okay, you're calling in the favor, all right. So we've got 4 members, and I just want this team meeting page when it's the 4 of them, like, it's so colorful. The way that the colors in the background sort of like go from green to pink to purple to blue, very, very nice. It gives the whole thing a really nice color palette. And it feels more distinct than any other book I read this week. It feels like this is this book's style. And then Cass is like, hey, what about Harley Quinn? And Dinah's like, hell no. And then Cass says, can I tell you a story? And then there's a couple of pages of a flashback. And I liked how the coloring was done for these 2 pages, actually.
Yeah. It's all kind of light pastel, kind of.
But it's basically Cass bumping into Harley when they're investigating the same crime. And Harley fights Cass. And Cass is basically impressed at Harley because she's so unpredictable with how she fights. Like, for example, in this scene, she grabs a big fish and tries to hit her with a fish.
Instead of the frying pan that she looked like she was going for.
She didn't win, but she got closer than most people would. Like, much closer than she would have expected. So she says, hey, and this is actually 4 pages, not 2. And she eventually just jumps out the window with a smile on her face to get away from Cass. And the comedy beat here that really killed me though is when it cuts back to like the scene of like her telling the story. It's this POV shot of the other ladies, and they're just like, Small Bat, that was hardly a story. You barely spoke. And then I went back and looked through those 4 pages where she was telling the story, and I get the impression that she basically didn't actually describe a lot of this. She maybe just said that there's like captions where she says, frying pan, no fish. And then
it's like she's like, to me, she was recounting what happened while also a little bit acting it out. So they're just kind of looking at her like, we have no idea.
Yeah,
what's going
on.
I
love the idea that we got all the context because we could see the art, but they got barely any of it. They just got what, fish instead of frying pan. What? Yeah. What's going on? And she's like, no, she almost beat me. We should try and recruit her. So sure enough, they go and get Harley, who's fighting some bad guys in an alleyway. And Harley thinks they're a kill squad, and they're like, we're not a kill squad. We're here to recruit. So.
She tell your kill squad, right? You got Sandra Kane, Big Barda, Zealot, and you. It's enough to make people crap their pants.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah, because she basically said, "Oh, this reaction Harley's given us is the right one." Yeah. Perfect reaction. No, that was a good setup and payoff. But Harley ultimately, of course, says she's in. Right. You know, Sin's a cool ass little girl who might grow into a cool ass woman. I'm in. Like that doesn't really take much to. So there is kind of a nice like positive like women sticking together vibe that's happening here for some of the characters.
Yeah, and so I had to go back, and I wasn't that familiar with Sin and her development, but upon reading, apparently she was supposed to be the next Lady Shiva.
Okay.
Right, and so Dinah got her out of there, and so whatever she's wrapped up in now, it almost seems like whoever was responsible for her, for raising her before Dinah got to her, has got her wrapped back up in this big problem. So the fact that they're all going to come together to kind of pull someone out from from this darkness, where you look at all of these characters, and like you said, Zealot is the one that I'm least familiar with, but you have Harley, her, right, her backstory. You have Cassandra Cain, who is Shiva's daughter, right, and you have Big Barda, who's from Apocalypse, who fled Darkseid to join up with New Genesis, and her husband, Mr. Miracle. So there's a through line. So Zealot, I'm not that familiar with her, but maybe those are along the same lines. That's kind of her. Maybe. But there seems to be a theme with all of them escaping darkness to fight on the side of light most of the time.
Yeah, okay. So. Yeah, I think that's a good point. That tracks. And then the last page reveals who told Dinah that Sin needs saving and how to do it. It turns out to be a character named Meridian. However, she does point out that you might know her as Maps or Mia Mizuguchi from this time, and I had to double check who that was, because I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm supposed to know who this is. I'm going to go check. It turns out this is the little sister from Batgirls who originally appeared in Gotham Academy, but this is her grown up from the future.
Gotcha.
So
I remember the name from like online discourse, so that's probably where from was the Gotham Academy.
Yeah, because she says, Maps, you might know me in this time as Maps. So it's like, okay, clearly you're from the future.
Yeah.
You clearly have, whether it's powers or just like gadgetry, but you've got some sort of electric powers going on here, judging by the art. And yeah. But so she says to them, I'm here to help you break into Themyscira and rescue Sin from the Amazons before they accidentally bring about the end of the world. And then Harley laughs, and that's the end of the book.
I was just like, no effing way.
Dear. Honestly, I don't know if we knew that they were going to break into Themyscira, but I am excited by that development.
Well, and it makes sense. So a lot of people were upset. Not upset. I mean, in that way of comic book fans being like, well, wait a minute. Why wouldn't Dinah go talk to Diana, right? She's known her for years. And Kelly Thompson's like, why don't you get beyond one issue? Let's let the story play out a little bit.
Even this statement, though, from Meridian at the end, though, before they accidentally bring about the end of the world, that implies that if Dinah just went and asked something, it might start the chain of events that would end the world. I mean, it's not like anything concrete yet, but it's enough of a little thing to think, okay, there's a reason why Dinah... The same way, because the book starts with saying Babs cannot know, so maybe Diana can also not know.
Right. It's just one of those things, like, just, it's one issue. Let's let the story play out.
Yeah. And it was the same with Titans issue 1, where people were like, oh my god, did you really kill off that character? And then Taylor's like, just read issue 2. And of course, within 2 pages of issue 2, no, that was never what was happening. Calm down.
Right. Just this overreaction on stuff for serialized storytelling I will never understand.
I mean, it's fun to get into. It's just... I'm sorry, like, this is going to sound harsh, but too many people are just idiots, okay? That's the thing.
You're not wrong.
Talking about serialized storytelling as the chapters come out is really fun. The theorizing, the analyzing, and try to sort of like map out where things might be going or what's going on. The problem is there's too many idiots who just take the wrong reading and have no critical thinking abilities. It's mind-numbing.
I mean, you're telling me we're going to get a Kelly Thompson story with Leonardo Romero art of a heist on Themyscira, essentially, right? Like,
essentially, yeah.
let's go. Like that is a book for me.
This issue, issue 1 of this is a sales pitch. It's like, here's your characters, here's how they're going to banter off each other, here's the premise. This is, we're not really getting to it in this issue yet, but here's what it is. We're going to break into Themyscira and steal someone. That's an amazing premise.
Yeah. We're going to free them, not steal them.
Well, still, in the eyes of Themyscira, it's stealing them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And like, maybe this kicks off some of the Amazon's attack stuff that we know is coming. Like maybe. But yeah, no, it's, and again, I've talked about Harley so many times. It's just, she's become a character that I've come to enjoy. And so getting the Kelly Thompson voice for Harley and just, that whole scene with Cass as she's going, and she picks up the fish. All I could think of was Charlie Day yelling "wild card."
Yeah, wild card. Yeah.
That's it. That was an artistic representation of that and what she brings to this squad. Right? Is she can fight Cass to a standstill because she's making it up as she goes. And so just to get across the characters in the way this creative team did, I'm very excited for more of this.
Yeah, Bard is Danny DeVito for the record. Anyway.
She's Frank.
So anyway, I started blasting. Maybe that's more Zealot than I'm thinking about it, actually, but still, whatever. It was just funny in my head because she's the tallest one, and Danny DeVito is, of course, the opposite of that. Yeah. No, I love this first issue. I think I like the voices for the characters and the banter. I thought it flowed really well. Thompson is very good at having banter without it being overly wordy, so that feels great. And the art, honestly, I wasn't really familiar with Romero's art before, but I really like how this looks. It feels like it fits the tone of the book perfectly. It's got a clear color scheme. The way it switches to the even more muted pastels for the flashbacks really good. And like I said, the way it dealt with the different fighting styles by doing different art sort of sequence styles. Like, one was a 2-page spread, one was a sequence of panels that were more chaotic. All that stuff felt very intentional, and like artistic choices were being made. So I think we're in very good hands here, and this is just an exciting addition to my DC pull list, if you will. All right, what were you rating Birds of Prey issue 1, Matt?
I'm giving this a solid 9. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I agree with the 9. Yeah. If people get annoyed that we were too, appraising of Tom Taylor, well, I'm sorry, but Kelly Thompson's going to be similar.
Like, during the pandemic, I went and read every Kate Bishop thing that I could. So up until that point, 2021, I read every issue Kate Bishop had showed up to. And Kelly Thompson, through those, became one of my favorite writers.
I think I only read the first trade of the Kate Bishop book, but I did read all West Coast Avengers. I did read her Rogan Gambit book, and I read whatever the other one she was doing around that time. I can't remember.
She's done X-23, right?
No, I don't think so.
She hasn't done Wolverine?
No, because that was Taylor, which was great, and then Tamaki, which was still really good.
Okay.
Gotcha. And then I don't think
maybe I'm confusing because she shows up in Hawkeye. Yeah. So there's probably...
She was doing Captain Marvel for ages. And I read a bit of that. It didn't quite click with me as much as our other stuff did, but it was still good. But yeah, so yeah, Birds of Prey, super excited for more. Good stuff. So there we go. All right, next up we have Shazam issue 3, Mark Waid writing with Dan Mora on the art. And Dan Mora said, look, I'm not just letting this Romero guy come in and just take the best art of the week without a fight. So Dan Mora is here to flex his muscles as well. Have no fear. So obviously last week, because this has been a couple of months since we had the last issue because of night terrors. But the gods, the ones that make up the Shazam name, are basically messing with, the captain is what we're calling him now when he's in Shazam form. Because to regain control, they want control, and
it's to borrow a phrase from Shyamalan, they're grabbing the microphone or the spotlight, right? So yeah, which I liked. I liked that.
I'll be honest with you. When you said I'm borrowing a phrase from Shyamalan, I'm like, I have no idea what he's about to say.
See, I'm the wild card on the show, right? But yeah, which I do like. That explains why Billy was acting the way that he was in the captain form.
It also made me think, actually, because that over the course of this issue, Atlas is the one who wants to try and mess with them, and it made me think: it's slightly different when it's a different god who's like influencing him? Like, is the attitude he's like coming out with, more suited to that god? So before it was like more this anger and like
it was with Solomon. It said it was Solomon the Proud, so he was that's where he was boastful and stuff, and then it was with Hercules it was headstrong, right, and so that's where he was a little bit more angry and reckless, and now with Atlas there's a bit of pettiness, it seems,
and also the idea that he can do anything, that he's basically devoid of wisdom, and it's like, we could really use some wisdom right now in his head. But yeah, so the cliffhanger of the last issue was Freddy eavesdropping on the gods in the Rock of Eternity. The start of this issue is they catch him and they go to wipe his mind, and for a split second I thought, oh well, that's fair enough I suppose, but like, what was the point of this if there's no consequence of him finding anything? And then just that last two panels was like, oh, and we're going to like turn you into our spy, but so you don't know it, of course, but you're going to be our eyes and ears, and you're going to like keep an eye on Billy Batson for us. So I'm like, oh, okay, they've created this like sleeper agent spy in Freddy, and that's like what we're doing here. So that's the setup, and then it turns out it's been a couple of weeks since then, so a little bit of time passes. Billy turned his Shazam fan page into a Metamorpho fan page just so that people would stop harassing him.
And not just that, though. I feel like that's Waid, because now between World's Finest and now this, we've gotten so much Metamorpho.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is, Waid turning this Shazam into his era into a Metamorpho fan page.
I mean, I got a lot of Metamorpho this week because I read Batman the Outsiders later. So
there you go.
There'll be more of him to talk about. So, yeah.
Just like Freddy was like, that was a terrible idea. He's like, yeah, I panicked.
So Billy's not turned into Shazam in 2 weeks, which is what's pissing off Atlas. He's like, it's my turn to mess with him, and he keeps not turning into Shazam. So, like, basically they try and provoke. There's even a moment where Billy goes to intervene with a bully and gets knocked down, but like he still isn't turned. He's still, but that replays in his mind later on that night, except he's the bully and he's fighting Solomon Grundy. Like, he's kind of repeating the lines that he's imagined himself as the captain, as Captain Marvel, repeating the lines that the bully said as if he's the bully. So that's what he's scared of. He's scared of being the bully when he becomes Captain Marvel. So he wakes up from that nightmare. What was interesting is that he basically gets jealous and gets FOMO over the next like little while. He says that he's not turning into Shazam, but he's noticing Superman swooping in and saving people. Wonder Woman is. And what I thought was curious here is he mentions Mary Marvel, and there's a nice big panel of Mary Marvel looking great in the costume, and I was like, wait, so are her powers separate from his right now? Because the rest of the kids can't turn right now, right?
Right. Yeah, because that's what Eugene makes a dig at Billy.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I can't turn into Shazam. He's like, yeah, I know. What's that feel like?
Yeah.
But yeah, because I believe in the in that Mary Marvel mini that we read by Josie Campbell.
Yeah, no, I remember this, but I guess what I was getting at is that that stuck from then, is that her powers are completely disconnected from Billy's powers now.
Right, and they're coming from feminine gods, and that's why I'm wondering if that's what her role in the upcoming stuff is now, is because her initials are from different gods, just like Black Adam's are. Is they're not drawing from the same source. Yeah,
it's really neat, actually, because this just the casual mention of her also still being a superhero, and I especially like when because she looks great in the costume with the reds and the golds all popping, right? And what's really good about it is that it contrasts nicely with Billy, who's right next to her, the way he's drawn like over the top of all these panels, and they've got the Power Rangers / Smallville thing where he's wearing red and yellow. He's got a red jacket and a yellow t-shirt, so it really sticks out when you put them side by side with Mary Marvel, actually, as Miss Marvel or whatever you want to call her. No, you can't call that as a Marvel term. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so awkward with the Marvel word. Damn it.
I know. And that's why he became Shazam, right? And that's what he kind of made fun of, because the wizard Shazam, and it's just one of these things that I have all the faith in Waid in order he's going to be able to take this all out.
Well, he's the one who's doing all this captain business. He's sort of brought that back to just have it on its own. But then he says, even Plastic Man's saving people. And then he says, oh, now the universe is just rubbing it in. I thought that was quite funny. Wade's voice for these characters is great. But I loved Atlas getting pissy. That he's like, I want my turn. I'm supposed to have my turn of messing with him. And Zeus basically creates a disaster where a bus starts like driving all reckless and is basically everyone's going to die on it. So Billy, despite the fact that he doesn't want to, he has to turn it to Shazam. And this is a gorgeous panel where he starts running and like, you know, the captain's like next to him running as well. It's gorgeous.
Well, I love right before that is he's looking, the bus is careening out of control in Philadelphia, right? And he yells for Mary, Plastic Man, Metamorpho even.
Oh yeah,
right?
that was funny. Yeah,
somebody help, and then
even the art in that panel is really good because that's like the head turn. So he's looking one way, and then there's like a sort of faint version of his head looking the other way, and it gives the impression that he's looking around and like being like, anyone, please, superheroes.
And that's where he turns, and it got that page is so good just because what it does with the there's no background. It's just like the shadows, right, and the lightning. So it really makes the red and everything pop.
Yeah, the red, the gold all pop, and then he stops the bus at the bottom. Very Superman-looking panel with him just sort of holding the bus. But then there's a little slight twist here. This was not a bus full of people. This was a bus full of gorillas from Gorilla City.
Unlike a United Nations trip.
Yes. You know? So
why not?
Basically, Alex's influence keep him transformed because he's like, I'll fly you to Gorilla City. So you get this big 2-page spread of him, like, you know, flying the bus into the city. There's a page here actually. They're keeping this subplot going where the dinosaur lawyer, whoever it is back at the house, and he's like, "Oh, we have to deal with these, you know, the crimes that Billy Batson committed in issue 1, and Tawny and Darla are the ones that have to deal with them." And I actually lost it. It's just how absurd the whole thing is, and the art, of course, the expressions with Tawny and Darla looking at each other are great. But it was the way this dinosaur in the top hat and the monocle said, "My superiors are not to be trifled with. Trust me, the earth they are not risk a visit from." And then in all capitals with like the icicle, you know, speech bubble, the auditors. And I was imagining like dinosaur auditors are coming to Earth.
What?
I love this. I love this book. This
is the perfect amount of like Silver Age shenanigans that I would expect out of a Shazam book.
Yeah, it's, and again, much like I liked about Birds of Prey, this feels different to that in every other book. This feels very much its own book that nothing else is dipping into.
It's taking out its corner. I mean, here we get the captain in Gorilla City, like you know,
including Atlas influencing one of the gorillas as well. So there's a lot of shenanigans going on here where they're manipulating things. So, yeah. And at one point, the wizard actually tries to intervene and say, "Oh, you're putting everything in danger here. This is you're going too far." And Atlas pushes him to a side and says, "You're not even a god, wizard." So it's almost like the wizard is starting to, if not sympathize with Billy, at the very least see how reckless this is getting, and is.
Oh, that's not the wizard. That's Solomon. That's the wisdom. Because he tells him, Alice, you don't. Yeah, he says you're not seeing the potential danger in this situation. You must permit me to amplify the captain's wisdom. And he's like, "Watch out! You're not even a god." Which he's not. Solomon's a biblical figure. You know,
it was the beard and the fact that he said he's not a god. But fair enough. Okay,
but so
it makes sense. It makes sense. The one who's wise is saying this is going too far, so that still works.
Right. Well, and then I also like too is Hercules is goading him, right? So if you know your mythology, one of Hercules' tasks was to relieve Atlas from holding up the world, and so Hercules takes a dig. He's like, yeah. Also, part of his power as well, influenced by you, is he's super gullible, you know, and that's where Atlas gives him the look.
Yep. So here's the thing. Here's the thing that goes on. So the gorilla in Gorilla City tells Shazam that there's an evil emperor on the moon, on the dark side of the moon, that that has got like some weapon that's going to obliterate us all. A secret rocket drive, it's called. And so the end of the issue is Shazam flying to the moon, and he's basically, his narration is really good here because he's basically convincing himself to like stay in this form. He's like, this gorilla, convinced me to go to the moon and take out this emperor. Does that make any sense? Pause. Yep. He just believes it. So it's basically like, there's no wisdom here. There's like no wisdom whatsoever. He's just believing everything they tell him. So he gets attacked by some big like robot snake thing at first.
Yeah. This is where it goes completely, and pardon me, but it does go bananas.
Sure.
Because was not expecting this.
Yeah, and then the final page is this Emperor Gargo, who I'm assuming that's how you pronounce that anyway.
I think so, or yeah.
It ends with UAX for anyone who I don't know if it's maybe Gargo
or Gargoax.
It's not it's not Gargoax, is it? Because that definitely looks like a French thing. I could be wrong.
He's an alien though.
Anyway, it's this big green dude who's an emperor, and he's got Captain Marvel pinned down, and you've come to declare war against this moon. I accept the challenge, and it says next time Moon War. So this is going places. I don't like. What I could say about it, I love the status quo of the gods all taking their turns messing with Shazam. I like the subplot with the dinosaur like lawyer with Darla and Tawny. I like this established thing that Mary's still a superhero. There's not really a single plot beat in this that I either don't enjoy as good character development or just a good bit of like zany fun. Like all of it's working for me.
Yeah. For sure. Well, and then we get an Emperor of the Moon, right? Who wants to launch a rocket at Gorilla City. Like this is when you're just trying to describe the events of this book. It's like you're just rambling stuff, but it's well told throughout. There's a clear line in all of these.
Yeah.
By the way, this Emperor guy is a Doom Patrol villain from the...
Really? Okay.
Yeah, first appearance was in Doom Patrol 91 from 1964.
He's a really old Doom Patrol villain. Then.
Yeah. So again, it's Waid,
I mean, I'm not surprised. Yeah, Waid pulls obscure shit out of like his DC brain. It's... Yeah, that's not a surprise. Had a great time. Obviously, we mentioned some of the art, but obviously the art is fantastic. Mora's stuff is gorgeous.
We've really been spoiled for art this week so far.
Yes,
it's going to make it very tough, but come to the end of the show.
Yeah, even despite my misgivings about Batman, it was Jimenez on art. So there's not been a bad art.
No.
Book
that's far.
That was a weird sentence, but
a lot of fun. Without parroting too much of Pete, though, too. I do like the God stuff and their inner bickering, too, because I'm sure that's going to be key, through there. And where is the wizard? I know that's a plot line that Waid started throughout. And is him not being there also, like him being on the Rocket Fraternity, is that what was keeping all the gods in check? Because they're also kind of acting like the 7 deadly sins. So I'm also wondering if maybe the sins are influencing the gods because the Rock Fraternity is out of balance or whatever.
There's only 6 of them though, right?
True. We throw an exclamation in there, we get a 7. So, but yeah, no, it feels more. Maybe it's a take on that too. That these gods also have their own flaws, and those come through. But
I suspect that's where the arc might dip into by the time we get to the end of it. All right, what are you giving Shazam issue 3?
I'm gonna give this a solid 8.
Yeah, I'll go a nudge higher and say 8.5. I think it was really good. This was, this was like proper books are back, no night terrors. I had Batman out the way. I was in heaven at this point. So that is Shazam issue 3. Justice Society of America issue 6. Geoff Johns writing with Marco Santucci on the art. So not Yannin.
Nope.
That was something I noticed immediately. I was like, oh, we have lost.
Yeah, distinctly not Yannin.
Yeah. That's not to say the art's bad. It's solid for what it is. It's probably the weakest art we've talked about so far, but that's not a knock on it. It's just because the art caliber this week's been high so far.
It's still pretty good though. Like, and some of the comparative weeks, this would be a runner, But just from where it opens up with these iconic shots of superheroes, like I think Santucci art really lends itself to that DC. I think you call it the house style, right?
That's what I was going to say. He's kind of like he's almost house style, but he's just got enough personality in the art to just sort of go a little bit beyond that. So it basically picks up with the moment we ended with last time, which was Stargirl coming with Judy. And this makes it clear, this is them just coming back from the island with all these kids that vanished from time. And it seems like when they're reunited with someone, the person they're reunited with will remember them, like, at that moment. But,
very similar to Wally and Barry.
Yeah, kind of. Which I guess makes sense since that was also John's. But Jay didn't know about her beforehand, though. He didn't think he had a kid until he sees her, and then it all sort of, like, comes rushing in.
Jay Garrick, you are the father. Right?
And they talk about how there's like sonic booms going off everywhere as they're like catching up around everyone. Meanwhile, Bruce has bought Helena Wayne, that is, an apartment in Washington near the GSA. And she kind of gets offended by sort of thinking, oh, you want me in Washington away from Gotham, so you don't have to deal with me. And he's like, hey, no, I thought you wanted to be with the JSA. I mean, if you want to come to Gotham. And they do a bit of continuity stuff here where she's like, nah, you and Mum are about to have a pretty big fight. I'm just going to stay here.
Because they says, and it's New York near the.
Sorry, it's New York, not Washington. Sorry, I'm thinking of Wonder Woman. Sorry.
Yeah, and so, but she gets upset because you tell the world I'm your long lost cousin. I get it. You don't have to explain why you have an adult daughter, But she's kind of upset that he's kind of keeping distance. But I understand it.
It's weird. Yeah,
it's weird. Also, good art touch. There's Bruce's shadow has the bat ears on it.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. That's good. That's very good. They've also got the Power Rangers style thing going here, where Helena's wearing purple, even though she's in street clothes. I think this makes enough sense. It is kind of interesting that she'll never. Well, I mean, she does exist because she's like an anomaly, but she'll never be born now. They're never going to have this kid.
Not this version, anyways.
So that's a really interesting thing to deal with. The JSA are looking to try and take all the other missing kids back to where they belong. Unfortunately, though, most of them have been missing since the 40s, and a lot of them don't have someone to go to because their loved ones have grown up, they've died, so on. We get a conversation between Dr. Fate, Khalid, right? And Salem the Witch Girl. Is that what she's called?
Yep. Salem the Witch Girl with her her broom sweep, which I think is a nice touch. This is where I needed to tag Connor in because he loves Dr. Fate like I love the Flash characters. So getting this really quick rundown of the Fate history, I needed to be like, yo, condense this for me, please.
Honestly, the fact that there's been two different guys named Kent Nelson's so confusing.
Yeah, for sure. And so, I know Connor would have a way of expelling, getting it down to where we go. But yeah, I kind of...
He'd be like slipping on a banana peel. He'd be slipping around. He'd be rolling around in his own poop like a...
Yeah. I just had a visual of him when he got attacked by the dog, of him slipping in the video.
Matt, so do you know me and Carter are doing Smallville?
Yes.
All right.
Oh no.
We got to an episode in season 2. This review's not out yet. It won't be out publicly till February or something like that. But
good lord.
Yeah, it was because we're reposting the co-op versions of all the season 1 videos that we already did before. But it'll be on Patreon in the next couple of weeks. But we got to episode where there's a Native American shapeshifter, right? And they turn into a wolf. But to be honest, it's a white wolf, and it looks just kind of like a dog. I mean, they've got it growling, but when the dog was attacking someone, and I'm like, this doesn't feel like a werewolf or anything like that. I just thought, I was like, this must look like what it was like when you got attacked. That's just this cute little dog. It's just fine.
Oh boy, sure he took that well.
Oh yeah, he did. He did.
But yeah, what back to the JSA. I do like that there seems to be some contention between Salem and because Salem was meant to be the protege to her, Dr. Fate. The fact that there's someone that's kind of usurping the helm, right? She's kind of not okay
someone
with.
Who's probably really close to her age. Like Khalid's probably still older than her, but not by much.
Right. So I do like that there's that tension between them, and we kind of got hints that. Salem the Witch Girl, she had something to do with the undoing of the Justice Society from Helena's time, right, in the future.
Yeah, well, she says here that she's basically cursed, that she can't get close to anyone, so she's intentionally very rude to everyone. So that's
I get it.
That's setting up some stuff. Cherry Bomb, like Dr. Midnight's trying to help her and see if they can cure her. Yolanda's AWOL right now, so it jumps around a lot of characters, just setting things up. Because Wildcat comes in and asks Midnight where Yolanda is,
right,
and she's not there. We have who's this B character?
That's Ladybug.
Ladybug, thank you.
This is the one that made me real sad, just because of the way that she had no parents to come back to, and then just the realization that the parents never knew what happened to her. Right?
Yeah, it's like the parents who get to reunite now get to remember and get all their memories back, but the ones who have died, like, they'll never know that their kid was all right, and that and it's not even that they feel lost either, because they didn't remember they existed.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
so it's really sad. Yeah,
it's really sad, and just the idea that her person was the Red Bee, and that the Red Bee's like great grandniece or granddaughter has this bee farm now, but so it's almost like she has she never left an imprint. Right, like all of this stuff is ultimately for nothing, and just her crying on Courtney's shoulder, right? Where John's is really working well.
Luckily, though, there's a bee named Michael that shows up who somehow survived all this time.
It's a magic bee.
Apparently,
he ain't got nothing on Anthony. I'll tell you that much.
And then we have this alternate version of Steel, who's Steel's grandfather's brother. Right. To which he says, no idea what that makes us. I'm pretty sure it makes you his great uncle. But,
it's okay.
Whatever.
He's a simple man that swings a hammer. I'll allow it.
Yeah. It sort of rushes through a couple of the other ones because they don't get as much time. But it goes...
TNT, is he with... Who's he with? I know he's punching a Nazi, which I'm always fun with. Is that supposed to be Atom Smasher?
I thought that was meant to be Atom Smasher, yeah.
Okay. Because the mask looks a little bit different to me, so I got a little bit confused.
Well, because he's not called TNT. He says, have you ever considered calling yourself TNT?
Yeah.
Right. If it's not Atom Smasher, I'm not sure who it's meant to be, but I thought it was Atom Smasher. Yeah, and then the Mr. Terrific kid, whatever his name is.
Whatever his name is, Junior Terrific is what I'm going to call him.
But yeah, we come back to Huntress, who's with Power Girl, and she's like, hey, we're the ones who built my version of the JSA in the future. So why can't we recruit some of these people earlier? And a lot of our members were people who found redemption. It was people who were villains that we brought over to the good side. Why can't we make this world better by having those things earlier? And before we get to this last page, I'll just say that, well, I mean, arguably, they may have to go through more of their dark times before they're ready to have those redemptive moments, but, I get our logic here of, like, trying to do it earlier.
Legacy is not just for the heroes, right?
Yeah,
and I think that's what Helena's point is, right? Because she is the daughter of a superhero, and I wouldn't call Catwoman a supervillain, right? But she's not always on the hero side.
She's definitely rode the line a bit.
Yeah, and so just the idea that, Legacy can, you shouldn't be bound by just the one side of your legacy, that you should be able to offer redemption to people. And that fits in very well with the Wayne family.
Yeah.
Right?
So the reveal at the end is that the first person she wants to try and convince to join the JSA is Solemn Grundy. So that's our cliffhanger for... Yeah. So this arc feels like, we're not doing a big villain this arc. We're doing like sort of recruitment. We're doing like how these characters are going to reintegrate into a team if they are going to be on the team. And I enjoyed this as a nice change of pace from that, because the last few issues were all this big Degaton fight. We're dealing with timey-wimey stuff. It was nice for characters to slow down. Okay, let's talk about the effects of this on everyone, and the emotional moments where Ladybug realizes that her parents will never know she existed. Is quite a good observation. It is a good thing to acknowledge with these characters. So yeah, I had a good time. And Santucci's art, it's got the heavy inks, which is fine. It has a look. The only thing that's really a knock against it, because it often looks quite good. There's even times when it's almost viewing into Gary Frank territory. Almost, not quite, but almost.
You can definitely tell the influence is there, though.
Absolutely, particularly in the faces occasionally. But the one knock against it is that we had Mikkel Yanin for the first 5 issues, and it did take me a few pages to be like just accept that and move on.
Yeah,
but they are still good.
Yeah, art looks nice, colors are nice. Cons, not Yannin.
Yeah,
That's basically what. Yeah.
Pretty
So,
much, pretty much.
mhm.
But I enjoyed the issue. I like again. I like that it feels like a pure ensemble. It's not doing anything else.
All right, it's not just Helena's book. It's not just Jay's book, right? We're getting
Yeah.
a little bit in there.
But we
And-
are getting those minis and stuff coming,
yeah.
which is nice.
So that's what I was just gonna say. Is I'm looking forward to the Jay and Judy book that's coming out. Just because that was a very heartwarming, thing. Is him? I'm just a sucker for Flash reunions, I guess, and and just the whole idea is that he's the Flash, she's the Boom. It's such a hokey 40s thing, and Johns has a knack for that.
And for anyone who's wondering why I don't hate that, because I tend to hate things characters being retconned into characters past. I don't mind it in this case because it's literally a retcon to the character and they react as such. It's when they try and pretend that there's just someone in the backstory we've never heard about
the whole time
that was always there. Yeah, that's where I take more umbrage.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, this would be bullshit if they do it a lot. But if they're going to pull a Dawn once in a while, I can get on board with it.
And Dawn from what show?
That's the hit television show, Matt. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So
there you go.
All right, what are you giving Justice Society of America issue 6?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I'm going to go the straight 8. We're flipping from Shazam. I'm going to go to straight 8, but it's still very good. Still really liking it, liking what they're doing with the characters. I'm excited for more. Hopefully, maybe now that Yannen's off the book, maybe the one upside is that it'll stick to a monthly schedule. Maybe that's the one good side of this. All right, moving on. Poison Ivy issue 14. G. Willow Wilson writing with Marcio Takara on the art.
Yes, it's so nice to have Takara back on art. It's again.
Oh, how many issues was he missing?
Just for the Night Terrors.
Oh,
stuff,
okay,
right?
I see. Yeah.
So, and then I think one before because it was a kind of an interlude. But this is Pam getting back on her stuff in Gotham, right? So she has the house in Slaughter Swamp that Croc told her about, and so she goes to investigate it, and she finds this dead body that looks like it's her handiwork with a flower left on its face. And she can't figure out, what caused this guy to die. Like, was he frightened to death? Was it poison? No, it's a dead body, and the flower was left as a warning. So she's like, I really need to figure this out because I need a base, right? So she starts going through, and she sees that it's held by Undyne Holdings. She tries to figure out where she's heard that name before, so she calls Janet from HR, who's crashing at Harley's. And it's this really nice page where she's laying on what looks like a cot in a Wonder Woman shirt, but you look around her and it's just all a bunch of zany Harley Quinn stuff. So there's like all of her bats lined up against the wall. There's the hyena collars for her two, pet hyenas. And then just like fireworks surrounded by her.
And for Ivy to wear on a kinky night.
Or that. Get out of my fantasy, sir. So she calls and wakes Janet up, and she's like, I need you to do your Janet from HR stuff, right? Get into your human resources. And she asks her about Undyne Holdings, and turns out it's this developer that came in during No Man's Land, named, where's he at? Peter Undyne. But there's nothing about him. It's just a photo. And so I was like, of course. This all goes back to, when, of course, we had all these developers coming in post No Man's Land. Luther led the way. Everyone else left, but it seems like not everyone did. So that's where Pam's heading to next. Ivy pops in and they, wants to break the tension with Janet because she kind of can feel this, there's something that's not quite right with Janet from HR. Janet's feeling guilty because her and Pam hooked up during the Mushroom Fest back at the influencers time, and Harley's kind of like, I might as well try to get along with you. It's gonna make Pam happy, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do right now. As Pam's going through this house in the swamp, she basically, for lack of a term, starts tripping balls, right? She opens this door, and it looks like one of those MC Escher paintings where all of the stairwells go bleed into each other, right? And she's like, well, this can't be right, right? Poison and stuff doesn't affect me, so what is going on here? Is it some kind of illusion? Is it a trap? So she starts, moving backwards, and she can start seeing her pheromone signature. So that's how she starts to get out of this maze. But then it leads her to a dead end to where she started, but there's more. So, she starts, there's like, she hears like a grumbling, runs off in a different direction because she thinks that there's got to be a scientific explanation. She's still a scientist. Janet from HR goes to like an interview with a HR lady, and she starts digging for news or for any information about this Peter Undine, where she kind of gets the puff piece on him that, oh yeah, he's this great guy and he wants to redevelop Gotham for the better, and that's his mission from the start. And but what he's found is, or what she finds is that he's used this proprietary steel that's used on this thing, and he hides toxic waste in it, right? And so that might be what's causing Pam's reactions in this building. Janet realizes that she's not going to get the job, so she leaves to call Pam. Pam's not answering, and she ends up having a run-in with Batman. So Batman comes in, and he looks terrifying. So Takara does this really good job of putting him all in shadow so he looks more like a creature. The main problem is that this is during the daytime, right? So he has to have an excuse to get Janet down this alley. But Batman comes in and kind of like tries to shake her down. She yells to get away from him, but then Bruce steps out of the shadows to see him more human. And the creepy thing in this scene is that Batman's smiling, so it almost doesn't feel like Batman. Like, it's very off-putting, and I don't know if that's Wilson making a commentary on just seeing Batman happy is unsettling, or if it's, this is maybe not Batman because he's talking in black speech bubbles. But it might be Batman because he lets her know that he knows exactly who Janet is, pulled all her records, where she went to business school, she was a lacrosse player. It doesn't strike him as, normal that she's a sidekick for a terrorist. So there's something up. And he tells her, like, get away from Pam before things get bad. This is not your realm. So how does Janet respond to this? She doesn't tell Batman, hey, chill. She panics and hits him with her purse, which does stun him. And he just looks at her and is like, seriously? And then she takes off where Harley ends up grabbing her and is like, did you really hit Batman with your purse? Because that's not a good sign, right? What do you think was going to happen? And she's like, I didn't think. That was just my first reaction. And then she's like, well, I think we need to talk because, like, there's this tension between us. But first, we need to make this about Pam, right? So as they're talking, they end up leaning in and they kiss. And it cuts back to Pam. She's running around in this building. She sees like this, almost like these blue like orbs materializing down the hallway. And when she turns around, it's this guy in a blue suit with a blue flower on his face. And, asks if, she's alarmed because, again, these transformations are always alarming. And this building, like me, is about to become something else. So it leaves it here with whoever, left the message for her is almost kind of like a new Floronic Man. But he has a flower for a face, in that it might be tied into this Undine Holdings, putting toxic waste in their proprietary steel. And then it's seeming like we're having a very, I don't even want to call it a love triangle because it is this messy nest, right? Janet from HR is getting herself into. Takara's art is top notch. There's even in just the pages that are conversations, there's attention to them where it's very cinematic, where you're waiting, to see where this exactly goes. And, when Janet and Harley share this kiss just out of nowhere, it really is shocking. And not in like this, oh my God, these two are making out or whatever. It's like, what is going on story-wise in a good way and not like it doesn't make sense. So still enjoying this book. This flower guy, I'm hoping it's not just a return to what's his name, the Flonic Man, Harley's main villain. I hope it's Woodrow. I hope it's not just a return to him. I hope this is doing something new. But yeah, it's still Pam, trying to be a villain, but finding herself in heroic situations. So the art's really strong, so it's probably going to carry a lot of this. But I'm going to give this an 8.
Okay, fair enough. Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville, issue 1. This is Joanne Starer, maybe, and Natacha Bustos on the art. So, yeah, this was like a weird book that was popped up in the solicits a few months ago, and we're like, oh, what is this? And the premise is kind of basically the two of them move to Smallville and take over this old salon that's been left abandoned. We don't really get a lot of details other than Superman recommended they go to Smallville to chill out for a bit and, recalibrate, learn some small town vibes and come out the better. Although I suspect this is more about fire than it is ice, because she's the one with the temper.
And it stemmed from that Action Comics or the Power Girl special, right? Which you didn't read.
No, I didn't.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, so that was Fire and Guy Gardner got into it, which you get a little clip of in this, which leads Superman to be like, you guys need to go somewhere to chill that's far away from, prying eyes, basically. Why don't you go back to my hometown?
Yeah. Oh, and there's a little tease at the start as well, actually, that the building they're in is going to be burning down at the end of this story. And then we cut back to, was it 2 weeks earlier? So, it's them moving in. They've got a robot. Who
I believe is one of Superman's from the Fortress. Because his name's Elron, which is a little bit too close to the founder of Scientology for me, but whatevers.
Well, it's funny, not that I think that's a reference to that, but I was very mixed on this book, and one of the reasons why I was mixed is some of the weird pop culture referencing that was being kind of shoved in was kind of distracting to me. What's weird is that there's one or two that I think are fine until they take it too far. There's this character who shows up and basically begs for a job because she used to work in the salon. And they give her, a job, and she starts singing, her name's like Nan or something like that. She's like, Nan is back again. And I'm like, okay, whatever, that's a cute character moment, I guess. But then someone walks in and says, wait, why are you singing Eminem? And she goes, what's an Eminem? And I was like, what is this page? Like it was fine when it was just the first bit, but you're driving it into the ground with weirdness now.
Are we not supposed to like that girl? Because I don't.
I think you're supposed to like her well enough. I think it's just supposed to be like the fiery sort of like intrusive character that comes in and spurs their characters into action by actually making them run this place and whatever else.
I get, but man, she comes off really. I know she's 19 too, and that might just be my distaste for teenagers,
yeah.
But yeah, she was a lot.
Yeah,
it was a lot.
And honestly, this is kind of it's almost serendipitous that this came out this week, because this is exactly the opposite of what I was saying about Birds of Prey. This is going for the banter back and forth, but it's very wordy, and it really fills up the pages. There's a lot of bubbles, and I do think it hinders it, where I could see the humor like coming through it occasionally. Like there was the odd likable moment and things like that, but I was really struggling at points to. So yeah, I'm like, I don't think it's a bad comic per se, but about halfway through I was like, you know what, I think I know this isn't for me.
Gotcha. I like the majority of it, but I agree on the banter. It became a lot where I just started to skim, just because I get it. Tora and B They're best friends. They're not seeing eye to eye right now, right? Tora wants B to calm down.
Just because they're not A-listers, they're just Tora's ice and
Tora's ice and B is fire.
Yeah,
right?
just for because people might not know them.
Gotcha. I'm still basing this off of our love of Human Target, where they were very familiar to me, right? So
I feel like I still call her ice like almost all the time though.
You do. I'm trying to make it feel more familiar, right? But it's just you get the fact that they are friends, right? And that they want the best for each other, but they're not being communicative like at all. And it's going to be, through this, together in Smallville is gonna, make or break them, right?
I mean, the main thing that the book kind of revolves around is Fire trying to encourage supervillains to come to Smallville because she wants a fight. So she posts an invitation on YouTube, effectively, and within like minutes, King Shark is like storming down the main street of Smallville. A couple of his bits did make me laugh a little bit. Yeah, but
just because I think of King Shark, we have this idea of him. And he's just kind of this brutish oaf, right? And he just comes in and does the brutish oaf thing, that he's looking for them, and he has 2 rows of teeth, and he's going to smash them up on both of them. And puny humans only have 1 row of teeth. They're no match for me, right? There's some silliness there. But the point I was getting at is I know where this is going, but I enjoy the interactions for the most part between Fire and Ice. There was a little bit too much of it in this first issue. Right, I kind of wanted to space it out and have them interact with the people of Smallville a little bit more, not just Ma Kent, which I do like having Ma Kent there. It has the tie to the Superman book, right, beyond just Smallville, and that she wants the best for these 2 girls, in the mom can't wait. And but yeah, it was a lot of repetition and a lot of the same, like Fire and Ice having the same argument about Fire being too fiery. And Ice not, believing in herself enough. And it was a lot.
Yeah, and Ice basically says she's done being a superhero, which makes Fire storm off after the whole incident. Because Superman shows up to deal with King Shark, which Fire's very disappointed about. But she ends up doing another social media video and basically asked a 19-year-old, what do you use? Because there's no way Superman's following the same things that you do. And, that's the thing that it goes. But yeah, basically the issue ends with Fire. What's the name of this character?
Of the assistant? Not the assistant, the salon girl?
No. The alien dude she phones at the end.
Oh, that's Ambush Bug.
Thank you. I was forgetting his name.
Gotcha.
She phones Ambush Bug and asks, basically, if if I pay you, can you let me kick your ass on camera? Because she wants to again use more social media to try and draw in some action. And in a slightly creepy line, Ambush Bug on the final page says, "Lady, I'd pay you for that." So he's a kinky little shit who wants to get beat up by tough ladies. But hey, I ain't kink shaming.
Nope.
But yeah,
it's just I wanted to like this book more, and I really did like the art though. I thought the art was easily the best part for me. I like the way the page breakdowns work, and it does feel a bit of that homey small townness, and it really makes them feel like fishes out of water. But yeah, I just wish the writing was stronger. I'm gonna hang on. If this comes out on a busier week, like I start getting piled up, it might get dropped. But for now, I'm gonna keep it going.
Yeah, the art was fine for me. I think the overall line work is actually pretty good, but the faces themselves felt just maybe a little too flat for me at times. But I mean, the art, I don't have too many complaints about the art though. Yeah, for me, I kind of know I'm done. Like, I don't think I'm reading issue 2 of this. It was very clear about halfway through that I'm like, there's a very particular type of like young writing style that's like this, writing these hip characters that talk too much and make too many pop culture references. Because I didn't even mention what the other one was, but there was one after the Eminem one that felt really weird as well.
Yeah. A lot of social. Go ahead.
It was a movie or something. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, it's not ringing a bell for me, but I will say I'm a little bit tired of social media popping up. And like, I know it's everywhere and stuff, but like, I don't need to be constantly reminded about social media stuff in comics. And I feel like a lot of these younger writers are trying to go out of their way to make it, because I feel like it's going to date things a lot, right?
I mean,
You know?
we don't really know how much it'll date things, just because we don't know what does social media look like in 10 years. We have no
Right.
idea.
Right.
But
I mean, there's a line that is about MySpace, but they don't call it MySpace.
oh yeah, it's
Right.
like
About how-
actually, yeah, that was one of the pop culture
Yeah.
things that I hated.
Yeah.
Was it was called like my
Place.
my place. Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, who uses my place anymore? I was
Yeah.
like, oh, come on, give me a break.
Yeah, that was the stuff with me. And looking back on it just now, it is very wordy, and it did take me a minute to get through it.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Yeah. So real mixed bag for me. What are you giving the issue, man?
I'm giving this a 7.
Yeah, I got to go a bit lower than that. I think I'll give it a 6. I don't think it's like I think there's definitely an audience that'll appreciate it, but for me, the dialogue was less witty and more trying to be witty, and it didn't click with me. So that is that. All right. Next up, we have City Boy issue 4. Greg Pak writing with Minkyu Jung on the art. So he was on his way to Bloodhaven at the end of last issue to see where his mum went.
He can follow memories, which we know that he can.
Yep.
If he focuses enough now,
They do a good job of reminding you at the start of this issue that he's not seeing ghosts. These are the memories of the city, so they're not something he can interact with. They're just playback.
He can't interact with them, and he can, if he focuses enough, he can pinpoint certain ones.
Yeah.
Right. So I think Pac does a good job of explaining that, and the art follows through, because they do look like ghosts, but they're a little bit different, right?
Yeah. It's easy. It's easy to see why, as a writer, he said, "I have to make this clear that these are not ghosts." So basically, he sees the mom, like when she left the city, she met up with another man and a kid, so she had a family, and he is kind of struggling internally that he wants to like find where she is now, but he wants to walk away and say, "You know what? She left me for another life with another family. I should let her go, because she turned her back on me. She gave me up and went and had a family. I should not want to." But he's kind of struggling with that internally. He kind of wants to.
Yeah.
And he's sort of freaking out a little bit because the memory, and I wasn't even sure if this was in continuity still, but turns out the nuclear bomb that went off in Bloodhaven during Dark Crisis is still in continuity, because he starts experiencing the memories of that happening, which is actually very horrific and is a very interesting thing to do with this character specifically when he's in Bloodhaven. So Nightwing shows up. They met in one of the Lazarus Planet special things back when. And just like before, this avatar of the city kind of appears out of like the metal fence and stuff, and it ends up being quite small. It's this little bat thing.
A little upset about that.
Why are you so upset about that?
It is Bloodhaven. We could have got another creature, right? But like, why does it have to be a bat? Like,
Why did the Metropolis one have to be a dragon? I don't know.
I don't know, but that's my thing, is like, if we're gonna play that game, then I get like Gotham being a bat, right?
But maybe that's the point, though, is that Gotham's actually like a.
Like Gotham looks like a rat.
It's like a
if I remember
pony.
right.
It's a pony. We got a pony in Gotham. It's actually Bloodhaven that's more connected with the bats. It's Bruce Wayne that's done all this bat association nonsense.
Sure, I don't know. I just felt like Bloodhaven, like I don't know. I don't know why it needed to be a bat. That's all.
I say it's bat-esque. I wouldn't quite call it. I mean, the face is pretty batty, but
Yeah.
So basically, Dick wants help with finding this woman, Jeannie Wynn, and City Boy's not really interested that much, but his ears perk up when it turns out this woman works with Intergang and she's went missing. And it's like, okay, all right, so we're going to look for her. Not that this partnership goes that well, because they find this lighter on the roof when they're going looking, and he remembers this backstory of the woman, of this woman they're looking for. And when she was a girl, her dad was killed in the nuclear explosion, and then she was homeless, got beat up, but then eventually joined a gang, and then that kind of led her on her path to Intergang ultimately. And City Boy's thing here is that he's sympathetic and thinks, no, she shouldn't be taken down. This is a woman that deserves to be sort of saved almost. And he's like, no, you can't just send her to prison. So that's what he debates with Nightwing. And what's funny is that even though Dick, because he just says over and over again he's going to take care of it. I've got it from here. He never actually says that he's going to just throw her in prison.
No, it's City Boy projecting, right?
He's making assumptions. Yeah, he's jumping the gun. Obviously, Dick's going to send her to like a place for help. That's what he says later on, which is not a surprise to us because we obviously know Dick quite well. But the Bat Avatar thing for Bloodhaven gets bigger, and City Boy flies it after Dick. And then it turns out, and this is the one thing that's a little bit weird. I don't know if like it's meant to be a trap, or if it's just they just so happen to encounter her just as intergang finder, and they're all there with their guns ready to fire. But when Dick sort of runs into her and like dives at her and protects her from the gunfire, while City Boy crashes in. And then the scientist dude who was experimenting on City Boy shows up and is like, aha, yes, you're controlling the city. And then the city starts expanding, all the concrete starts like transforming again. And City Boy has to focus and kind of, really like stop it from happening.
Appeal to reason for the little Bloodhaven bat.
Yeah. So, no. I mean, that's interesting stuff. The idea that, you're going to be like, you're going to build the one big city over the entire planet the dark side wants to rule. That's the plan here, is they want him to build a new apocalypse.
Right, and that's why I feel like he felt the same with this Jeannie character, right? Is that he feels like she had no agency in her life. And that's how he's feeling, right? From the time that his mom abandons him to, him getting the city powers and how Intergang wants to use him to create new apocalypse. He sees that in her. And I feel like that's what motivates him. That's why he's projecting on Dick that, people want the worst for her. So I like all that thread. I think that Pac's telling a real effective story through City Boy's character there.
Yeah. So I was dealing with a spider there for a minute.
Yep, gotcha.
So yeah, it's I think this is an interesting issue because it further just confirms like how some of his abilities are working. It extends a little bit of what Intergang's plan actually is and what they want to use them for. And we continue to see kind of like how different cities speak to him. And I did not predict them using Bloodhaven's nuclear bomb pass to like affect them differently, but it did, and I actually thought it was really cool. So yeah, I thought that was kind of neat. And then the ending here, and I'm excited about this because what have we been comparing this to? This whole idea of the cities getting such a life of their own that they end up with avatars. We have been comparing it to Swamp Thing and the idea of ideas eventually becoming strong enough to have a force of some kind, and the end of this issue is Swamp Thing looking from the shadows saying it's begun. And so we're actually going to be tying into the green here with whatever the city life force is or something. So this is such a natural progression that we've already been kind of comparing it to the entire time. So the fact that Pax, like he always was going to go down that path was like, okay, he knew what he was doing. We can trust him. Excellent stuff.
Yep. As soon as I turned the page and saw Swampy, I had a fist pump. Just because, logically, or the story's being told well enough that, I feel like it was leading to this. So, very excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Arts from Jung is solid as always. Yeah. Obviously, it kind of comes across as just middling this week when we've got so many like really exceptional art. But
there's nothing wrong with it, but it's just not. It doesn't have the, it's not the. What's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't have the accoutrement as some of the other stuff.
Yeah, it was a really heavy week for art, so it kind of pales a little bit in comparison, but it's still very solid and it's doing all its things really well. And at the very least, the art has some really unique things in it because of the whole idea of the city like forming an avatar and the city expanding. It's very different to anything else that's good. So I feel like all my books this week were a nice bouquet. They were all very different, which I appreciate. So what are you rating City Boy issue 4?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5.
Yeah, I'll agree with 7.5. I think it's just missing the 8, but it's good. All right, so every month at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV you can make myself read a book if you want at one of the higher tiers, and one patron has got me going through Batman and the Outsiders, and this is Batman and the Outsiders issue 6, the original version of it. So last issue was like the end of the two-parter with the new Teen Titans. So we're onto a new territory this week. Although it does have a cliffhanger, so it's not just a one and done. But I was very excited for the Cryonic Man, which was what the cover was promising. And it ends up being like a really apt name, which is actually kind of weird because so it turns out that, and this is not all revealed yet, but there seems to be part of this backstory for this character is that he's got other people in cryonic sleep.
Okay.
Because like there's a line at one point about how this guy like robbed the hospital 10 years ago, but he looked the exact same, and it seems like maybe he's gone into like cryogenic sleeping and then waking up and like committing crimes, but he's trying to save like his wife or his family or something. But he's always stealing like artificial like organs, because in this issue he tries to steal a fake kidney. I don't really know yet because like they've only just sort of teased this. We see him talking to the pods and he's like telepathically communicating to the people who are still in the pods. There's like his like wife and then another couple that are all seem to be there.
Seems very Mr. Freeze.
But he's the one who's waking up and going and doing stuff. Yeah, but the cryogenic sleep stuff where he's like going to sleep and waking up, I think, is very different. So the fact
that's true.
Yeah.
But you're just like having the bodies there and stuff though, and him talking to them.
Yeah.
Good.
But they're actually talking back though.
Oh, okay.
They're talking back in their minds. So
okay.
This is a plan.
Telepathic.
Whatever they're doing, it's like they're scientists or whatever that have planned all this. So the name the Cryonic Man was actually very apt because it works both for the idea of just freezing someone, but also the idea of being cryogenically frozen. What's weird about that though is that he doesn't name himself. Batman names him the Cryonic Man after he just sees him firing like an ice blast. He doesn't know about the cryogenically frozen part of his story yet. So I'm like, that's really coincidental that Batman picked the perfect name for this guy with very, very little information. But very good. So I like this issue a lot, actually. One, because the villain backstory does seem at least kind of interesting so far, but mainly because this issue is more of an ensemble piece where there's like 3 subplots going on with the different characters doing more of their day-to-day things. So the issue starts with Halo and Katana in street clothes, and Katana is making Halo go to school, and Halo does not want to. She's like, I don't want to go to school. I hate this. I don't know anyone. And Katana basically has to convince her to go by promising that they'll go and see a movie after school, to which Halo says, can we go see Star Trek again? And she sighs and goes, yes, okay, we can see Star Trek again. Which, for the record, this is 1984 when this came out. That is therefore the Search for Spock, the third Star Trek movie she's referring to.
Okay.
That's alright, it's not bad. It's not
bad, it's not great.
So that's all fine. I like this character development, making her, because she's a teenager, actually, get an education seems like a good idea. What did strike me as odd though is Katana's like outfit in this scene. She's dressed like she's the head mistress of a school, to be honest. She's got like a knee-length skirt on, she's got like a red like checkered jacket and like a white shirt. She looks like a businesswoman from like this time period, and it's just not. I can't imagine any version of Katana I have ever seen wearing this outfit. It's
I can't imagine
weird.
Katana in street clothes, right? I just think she's always wearing her uniform.
Yeah, like but see if you showed me that like t-shirt and jeans, I'd be like, okay, she's lunging about the base, that's fine. But this is she looks very like, no, she takes pride in her appearance as like a businesswoman kind of thing going. Right. It really stuck out to me. But yeah, so that's kind of that subplot kicked off. Then Katana meets with Bruce. And she doesn't know he's Batman. In fact, Bruce goes out of his way to sound like an idiot this entire time. In fact, because he says he's there on behalf of Batman, and what is it he says again? He says, according to your code of the Bushido, doesn't Batman own your sword? And she's like, it's Bushido, Mr. Wayne. But Bushido really made me laugh. So yeah, basically Batman's bought her a bookstore for everyone.
Nice.
Basically it's something to do with her day, to earn her own living. But it's a Japanese bookstore specifically. So Bruce is there to basically just show her the place, and so on. So yeah, so that's like, okay, we're establishing that.
Do you know how he was able to buy her a store? It's because his parents were rich.
Oh, you son of a bitch! I was like, he's a billionaire. What do you mean? What? How?
No.
Like he can afford it?
Yeah, his parents were rich. Let's be real. That's all Thompson Martha's money. What has Bruce done? You know, if anybody, Lucius
He's made investments.
Yes, Lucius has made investments. Yes.
Wait, well, if you're that rich, you can make your money work for you. You don't have to do it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, his parents were rich. That's how.
So you cut to the hospital, and Rex and Brian, Geoforce, are there talking to Jace, who's there getting patched up from the previous events. And while they're there, they meet this little girl who's waiting for a kidney. But she's very upbeat, and they have a nice time talking to her. But just as they mention that our kidney's been flown in, we cut to the helicopter coming in with this kidney, and the two security guards that are carrying this box with the artificial kidney in it. And that's when the cryonic man strikes. And for some reason here, even though the rest of the book has blasts are like white or blue to sort of insinuate that they're cold, honestly, this first time he fires his blast from his like glove thing that he's got, it's red or pink, so it looks like just a laser or something like that. So it didn't even let me think of coldness. But then, of course, later on, he's firing it and it's like freezing people. And a random stranger at the end of the book says it's liquid nitrogen, but liquid nitrogen wouldn't be solid, so...
Yeah,
it's not that, but you know, but that's just a dumb civilian that says that, so that's not a mistake necessarily. So yeah, basically they hear this ruckus, so Rex and Metamorpho suit up and go after the bad guy, whoever he is, who's got a jetpack as well as his ice blasters, and he's flying around. Metamorpho, you know, does some shapeshifty things and whatnot. You know, it's just a fun little action scene for what it is. But after this, we cut to a high school where Jefferson's going back to work, and they do a good job here because he's like thought bubbles and stuff really paint that he's really nervous about doing this. And he goes in and he asks someone to turn off their boombox. He gets a can thrown at him, and when he kind of snaps and sort of demands to know who threw it, like, he grabs the guy, like the kid, by the shirt, and he sort of stops himself and says, "What am I doing? Like, you know, last time I lost control, I lost my temper, a girl died." Not that he literally, you know, killed a girl, but
right,
you know. So it's playing with him having this stress of going back to school himself. I think it's really fun to do this in the same issue that Halo's going back to school, because it's a nice contrast. Where she's nervous because she's a student, doesn't know anyone, but he's scared because he's got this PTSD of teaching, basically. I think that's quite interesting. So yeah. Halo comes home from school a little bit late, and she's all happy because she went out for cans of Coke with some of her new friends. And she says to Katana, "You didn't tell me there'd be boys at school." And Katana gets this look in her eyes, and the eyebrow goes up, and she's like, "Oh yes, I didn't mention the boys." So luckily, her teenage sex drive has completely like made school interesting for her. So
when you said the boys, all I could think of was Dalton Castle, because the way that you said it.
See, I think of Carl Urban and the boys.
The boys,
You're thinking of a wrestler. Batman phones about this guy, you know, the cryonic man. So all the outsiders team up. They go to their meeting room, and Batman explains what's going on, and we have to find this cryonic man and stop him. You know, usual stuff. He makes his big entrance, though. He turns the lights off, you know, because obviously... This is when we actually cut to the villain, and he's got, like, robots that are helping him, getting patched up, and he's got his, like, 3 people in the cryonic chambers, and they're saying, "Please get us out of here soon," and he's like, "Soon, darling, I'll have you out of here soon." But he mentions, as he's walking away, he says, you know, "The world out there is worse than we feared, but don't worry, they'll get better. It's only 1955. Implying that he's from the future and that they've come back in time and are waking up at key moments to do things. It also emphasizes in one of the panels that he's got a scar on his leg, almost like it's been attached Frankenstein style, or at the very least his flesh has been sewn back up after something's been done to his leg. So just, you know, worth mentioning, could be relevant next time. So... yeah. So the Outsiders set a trap for him. They basically announced that this big fancy scientist with a fancy prosthetic thing is arriving. But it's actually Bruce Wayne with the Mission Impossible face mask on.
So real quick, I pulled this up on a wiki so I can kind of follow along with you. So that guy is actually Dr. Marcus Dorlin, the inventor of artificial organs. So Barr wrote a real person into this, which I think that's pretty cool.
I did not know that. Fair enough. So yeah, Cryonic Man strikes when they're going through a tunnel, and it turns out Batman's the rich guy. His driver... or maybe it's not right, actually. I think Batman may be the driver and Black Lightning is actually the rich guy. But either way, like, they suit up, jump out the car. The rest of the Outsiders are en route and they all kind of strike. And there's a bit of an action scene. It goes back and forwards. There's a fun bit here where Metamorpho makes because one of the things that's happening is that all the other cars in this very busy tunnel are starting to crash into each other. Because they're trying to dodge the action and they're trying to whatever. So Batman tells a couple of them to go and deal with the cars and make sure they don't get hurt. So Metamorpho makes this sort of ramp and cracks a few one-liners. And it's just some generally fun stuff. But there is some good stuff here where, there's a car that almost hits a big truck. Katana's fighting the Cryonic Man. There's just various things here just to make it kind of fun. But this is actually, I was realizing as I was reading that there were actually, I must be near the end because this has been 20 something pages, and sure enough the cliffhanger is that they get frozen. The entire team gets frozen by the Cryonic Man, and that's the cliffhanger. So I appreciate that actually, because I was thinking, because I was really enjoying this issue, spending time with the characters on their day-to-day lives. I was really liking that stuff because it was really humanizing them all. The idea that Katana's kind of this reluctant mother to Halo, Black Lightning dealing with going back to teaching. I was really liking all that stuff. But it did mean that the main villain plot was never going to have enough time to wrap up in one issue. So I was actually kind of relieved when I got to the end. I was like, oh no, we're doing a cliffhanger and this is at least a two-parter. I actually think that's really smart. And I had a good time. I enjoyed the two-parter crossover that we got well enough, but there was just so many characters that I really appreciated this having time again to actually spend time and develop what the characters are going through. So that's really nice. And I think one thing that I'm really noticing is that Batman, he shows up in this to be the leader of the team when they're doing missions, but we don't cut to Bruce and what he's going through because there's no need to. He has his own books. This is the rest of the team's book, and then he comes in and leads them as a team, but we don't get his day-to-day life. He does appear, of course, to Katana, but that's more about Katana's plotline than it is his.
Right.
So I think that's just an interesting thing that they've chosen to do here, which makes a lot of sense, given that at this time, at least Batman and Detective Comics would have been running at the same time, so if not a few other ones. So, yeah, I would give this one a solid 8. Cryonic Man, I was expecting a silly villain, but he's actually kind of interesting because it's a time traveler who's doing things in different time periods. Although, he's wrong. Actually, I should have mentioned that. He says it's 1955. It's not. It's 1984. So, I do think that his timing's off something here, and maybe that'll be a big plot point next issue.
So, I did some research on him. Just wait till you get to the next issue.
Oh, boy.
There's some twisty turnies.
All right, no spoilies. I'm invested in the Cryonic Man. Will he be better than Cold Snap? Only one issue will tell. But yeah, 8 out of 10 for me on this one. I enjoyed it. So that'll take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel/moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and of course our top 5 books. And we actually have a full top 5 to do this week, which is nice. So Matt, what was your panel/moment of the week?
Oh man, so there's a couple from a lot of the books. I mean, Shazam, you have that one of Billy transforming, right, to stop the bus. That looks really good. In Birds of Prey, you have Barda's introduction and the stuff with Cass. That's all really, really nice. There's some in Ivy that I really like, but that's more about the tension. And you kind of need the whole issue. So I'm going to pull mine from Justice Society, and it's going to be of, the Jay and Judy hug that snaps him into memory. Because, again, it's a Flash trope at this point, but it really tugged at my heartstrings. I'm happy that Jay has his family outside of the boys. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. There's a few things, like you say, from Shazam I could pick, or Justice Society, or even one or two moments from City Boy are really good. But I think I'm going to have to go Birds of Prey, and I think probably it is the ending, because as much as I like a lot of the individual moments throughout that book, I think the pitch of what it is, we're going to break into Themyscira, is just such a cool, like, mic drop of a end of an issue one.
And Harley's reaction too is pretty good. That would have made my list as well.
So yeah, all right. Cover of the week. I had a glimpse while you were talking about Poison Ivy. I feel like you're going to mention a certain Jen Bartel cover of one book, so I will.
I did not see a Jen Bartel cover, so now I have to look.
Well, Fire and Ice is the one you're looking at, Matt.
Okay, so I haven't clicked on Fire and Ice. So
I mean, Birds of Prey's main cover is good. Shazam's main cover is good. There's a interesting Batman variant by Gabriel Dell'Otto, which looks quite nice. It's Batman and Catwoman in the rain. I think my pick though might just be the variant for Shazam, which is Edwin Gallman. And it's just Shazam flying in the sky. It's just a really nice image. So I think that'll be my pick for this week. What you got?
No, that Jen Bartel Fire and Ice looks nice. There's also a Amanda Connor Fire and Ice. It kind of matches the tone of the book, very much. But who would I be if I didn't pick Poison Ivy?
Of course.
Right, and the main cover by Jessica Fong is really nice. But I'm gonna pick the Otto Schmidt, which gives kind of the monstrous Ivy, the Otto Schmidt stock variant. It's got her in kind of that flowery zombie kind of form, and just looks really, really nice.
So you looked at it, you said to yourself, "Holy Schmidt."
I did say "Holy Schmidt," probably 9 times.
All right. Art of the week. Oh, good luck with that.
This is tough, but I think I've made my decision as we've been talking. So yeah. So do you want me to run through the possible candidates, or do you just want me to go?
Just tell me what is it?
It's Romero for Birds of Prey.
I'm also picking Romero for Birds of Prey. It was very close.
To Mora?
Mora was the one that was very close, but given how many individual things I felt the need to point out whilst talking about it, I think puts it over the edge.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
but Mora was easily the second closest one as well. All right, top 5 books, Matt. On you go. All right,
so number 1's gonna be Birds of Prey, 2 Shazam, 3 Justice Society, 4 Poison Ivy, and 5 is Fire and Ice. No, City Boy. City Boy. Yeah, over Fire and Ice just a bit.
Okay. Yeah, my 5 will be number 1, Birds of Prey, number 2, Shazam, number 3, Justice Society of America. Exact same so far. But number 4 will be City Boy, and then number 5. I feel mean putting Batman above Fire and Ice, but ultimately that book wasn't for me though. So even a Batman issue that I wasn't as into still kind of takes number 5. So apologies to Fire and Ice, but it's just the way it's got to crumble sometimes. I will now tell you what is coming next week from DC Comics. So next week we have Green Lantern issue 3.
Yes.
We have Batman and Robin issue 1, so we'll see how that goes. We have World's Finest Teen Titans issue 3. Looking forward to that. Superman Lost issue 6. We have Danger Street issue 9.
Big week.
And then Batman Incorporated 12, Waller vs. Whalestorm issue 3, The Batman and Scooby-Doo Mysteries issue 12, and Looney Tunes 274. It's actually quite a quiet week for numbers, honestly. We only have, 4 or 5 books. I almost wish I'd left the Patreon book to next week that I'm looking at this. But
I only have 4.
Yeah.
So
do I, because I'm not reading Superman Lost anymore.
Me neither.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oops. So...
Oh, there's a Green Lantern there. Do I get caught up? Probably not.
On Superman Lost?
Sorry. In Superman Lost, it looks like a Green Lantern character.
You read issue 1 and 2 of Green Lantern. What are we talking about?
Yeah. No. I'm excited because they give a yes. So
yeah, I mean, I'm excited for 3 of those 4 books, and then Batman and Robin's got a morbid curiosity factor going for it. So
Good Lord, why couldn't they spread out the next week? I'm looking at the next week, and it's a glutton.
They always do this to us. They always just mismatch. And what's annoying is Solicits will be on week 3. Just you watch. Solicits will be the week with the more books.
Yep.
Whatever. It's our burden to... Burden.
Yeah. It's our burden to carry.
Anyway, that has been the show. You can, of course, support the show and all the content that we do over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. If you can't support us with monies, don't feel bad. You can like, subscribe. Those things help us get found on YouTube, or rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from. Share us on the social medias or to your friends, whoever might enjoy us. And of course, always remember to check out, there's a lot more content outside of the comics podcast. I do a horror movie podcast with Tim over in Mail Fuzz Movies called Streams After Midnight. There's a science fiction podcast called The Atomic Cinema Experiment. And then there's another movie podcast that I do with David, who does the Not So New 52 show, called The Collector's Cut, where we work through franchises and things like that. So, well worth going and checking out a bunch of these things if you want more banter between, well, me and other people at least.
Yes.
In fact, one of the things on the Patreon that just started at the $5 tier and up is a monthly video game podcast with me and Connor. So if you at least like me and Connor telling each other that we're idiots, then you may enjoy that.
Pete doesn't even like Pete and Connor. It's a tough ask.
Yes, or go over to MailFuzz TV and you can get the Smallville reviews that me and Connor do.
God, you guys. I just wanted to laugh that you were talking about how Bruce Wayne doesn't show much in Batman and the Outsiders. It's kind of about them. You're kind of the Batman in this. Is that you're in everything, and it, I have my own. I'm off on my own adventures, and David's off on his own. Tara's off on hers. Tim, who knows what Tim gets up to? But you're constant. You're in everything. So
I am the mic. I am the recording software. I am the Batman.
Yep.
Anyway, that is the show, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.